Make sure y'all stay on point with
The Puncher's Point. Latino Night is only 5 days away, and this is going to be a fire card. I mean, if you're a boxing fan, you're definitely going to want to tune into this card. We got William Zepeda on this card fighting Tevin Farmer. That's going to be a great fight. Oscar Duarte is going to return after his very tough loss to Ryan Garcia. Oscar Collazo is going to be on this card. Arnold Barbosa versus former champion Jose Ramirez. This is going to be a really good card, especially if you're a big fan of like the Mexican style boxing and all that type of stuff. This is going to be a really good card. And the main event is going to be the biggest one, Billiam-Smith versus Zurdo Ramirez. Now, this is going to be for the WBA and the WBO Cruiserweight Championship. Now, if you know anything about the Cruiserweight Championship and the Cruiserweight division, we've talked about who we feel is the best champion in that division, and that is Jai Opetaia. We've covered Jai Opetaia's fights before, and y'all already know we're big fans of him on this podcast. However, the Cruiserweight division is a talented division, and this is a very, very important fight that we wanted to cover because this is a unification bout. And we don't see many unification bouts now these days, Breezy. We don't see champions, fighting each other and unifying the division, and I think that's something very special no matter what division it's in. And that's why I wanted to get this fight with Billiam-Smith versus Zurdo Ramirez. Now, this is a very, very interesting matchup. We're going to start off with Zurdo Ramirez, all right? Now, I'm going to start off with Breezy, then I'm going to give my breakdown. But overall, this is a very, very interesting matchup. But we're going to start off with Zurdo Ramirez. So give me your strengths and weaknesses, Breezy, for Zurdo Ramirez.
For Zurdo Ramirez, Zurdo can actually box. And I don't think a lot of people tend to remember, too much about Zurdo because y'all typically remember his loss to Bivol. Now, famously, him being on Golden Boy along with Jaime Munguia, and the reason why y'all don't really pay attention to them is because they wasn't fighting notable names and they didn't get that recognition or that attention that they that they needed. So, but a lot of people don't really check for them. So allow me to. So yes, like I said, he can box. Not only that too, but he can box you in the middle of the ring. He can box you up against the ropes. His predominantly, top strength will be him getting you up against those ropes, putting his combinations together. And look, I know y'all probably gonna get on my head for this, but I look at him in a way like Canelo, not as terms of full-on skills, not on terms of power or necessarily, fan base and attention-wise, but more so of his style. He's the type that he's going to get in the inside with you. He wants to bang it out with you at times, and not only that too, but he does like to push you up against those ropes and make it an uncomfortable fight for you. Now, his weakness, just like Canelo, he does not have the best footwork. And I know that may be telling in itself, but I looked at his highlights, and it's like, if you're there to be in front of him, that you're going to get the best Zurdo Ramirez if a fighter is standing in front of him all night. If a fighter stands in there in front of him all night, he's going to look like the best thing ever. And I feel like for somebody like a Zurdo Ramirez, and maybe it's just that type of style that he has, but it's like you got to have some kind of footwork. And I feel like he don't possess that footwork enough, even for somebody of a quickness of a Billiam-Smith, or maybe a future contender like Jai Opetaia, champion one. But as far as the strengths of his weaknesses, he got combinations. He can go to his body. He can go up to the top. He can go to the edge. He can push up against the ropes. He can fight you in the middle of the ring. He can counter punch you. He does have a nice, decent jab. Although I will say is I don't think he has enough speed on his punches to really kind of put too much tension on you or too much worry up on you. But I do think he does have enough skills to where it's like he gets up on the scorecards. And because he is the type of fighter to where he does box you so he can get up on those scorecards, I think that leads to his biggest strength. Because like I said, either way, if he wants to keep it in the middle of the ring, he can do that. If he wants to get you on the ropes, he can do that. It all determines on if you're going to be in there in front of him the whole night. So that would be my strength and weaknesses for Zurdo Ramirez.
So with Zurdo Ramirez, now, if you take his nickname and you translate it from Spanish to English, it translates to the Golden Southpaw. That is not completely accurate because even though he is a southpaw, this guy got power in both hands. He will knock your ass out in both hands, and that's what's so impressive is even though he's a southpaw, it's like the power is equal in each hand. And it seems like whatever punch he can throw with one, he can throw with the other. Actually, here's what's very impressive about Zurdo Ramirez. In the Jesse Hart fight, Zurdo Ramirez hurt his hand, and he was forced to fight right-handed, and he was whooping Jesse Hart's ass right-handed. Do you know, like, that is pretty insane to use your non-dominant hand to beat another man. That's how you know that both of his hands pack the same amount of power. Now, the other thing about Zurdo Ramirez got some good body shots. I mean, his body shots are nasty work, and it exhausts a lot of opponents when he uses those body shots. It exhausts a lot of opponents. And what I like about Zurdo is he basically tries to go to that body as much as possible. He doesn't neglect it. The only time he neglected it was against Dimitri Bivol. And we're going to get to that a little bit when I get to the weaknesses. But overall, body shots are very lethal. He's got really, really good uppercuts. You mentioned his jab. He's got himself a really good jab. He's got himself some good head movement. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the guy's defense is pretty good. Now, will I say it's on the level of like a Dimitri Bivol or on the level of an Artur Beterbiev? No. But he does have very, very good defense, and we saw it on display against a lot of good fighters. You know, we saw it on display against Joe Smith Jr. We saw it on display against other fighters as well when he was at 175 pounds and even a little bit at 200. Now, obviously, with Zurdo Ramirez, now going on to the weaknesses with Zurdo. The problem is with Zurdo, he's a little bit flat-footed. Now, it's never a bad thing, really, when you're flat-footed. Now, there's fighters who like to bounce on their toes, and there's fighters who are flat-footed. A perfect example of a fighter who was very good flat-footed, Manny Pacquiao. But Manny Pacquiao was also very, very fast. He's flat-footed. Not going to say he's not fast because he is, but that's a problem when you're going in the ring with somebody who has very good quick foot movement like Dimitri Bivol. The other thing about him is he struggles against quicker opponents. I'm going to keep on saying Dimitri Bivol, and the reason why is because that is his only loss. And even Jesse Hart, there were moments where Jesse Hart was beating him to the punch, and Jesse Hart's foot movement was a little bit too much. Quick foot movement is a problem for Zurdo Ramirez. If you are a quicker opponent than Zurdo, that is a big issue. The other thing about Zurdo is when he starts a combo or an attack, he comes in with the same two things. If you watch Zurdo Ramirez fight, his initial attacks are a straight and an uppercut. That's how he's going to start every single attack he does. And that could be very, very predictable. Because all I got to do is watch out for one or the other. And if I do that, you're not beating me. You know what I'm saying? If I just parry your jab or if I just parry the overhand straight that you're going to give me, I could just come into the inside of you. And if you're trying to get to the body, I could just back up a little bit, force you to lean in, and then I can counterpunch you, which, by the way, that's another one of his weaknesses. If you can force him to kind of lean too much, he tends to get counterpunched very easily. The best way I can describe it is when Errol Spence Jr. was fighting Terrence Crawford, and he kept trying to attack the body, but he lowered his head too much, and he would lean in too much, or he would overreach, and then Terrence Crawford would counterpunch him. That's exactly what Zurdo Ramirez does if he can't get to your body. If he cannot get to your body, if you're able to kind of backstep and basically get out of range and he misses you, that's a perfect time to counterattack him. And overall with Zurdo Ramirez, I mean, he really is a good fighter, but the last thing I do want to touch up on is I liked him a lot better at 175. At 175, I felt like he was a lot more quick, and I felt like that was his division. When he decided to bump up to 200, I feel like he kind of became a little bit more slow. And overall, I hate to say that, but I feel like he was a lot better at 175, and I do want to see him more at 175, but obviously he made the jump up to 200. I feel like after the Bivol fight, he chose to go up to 200, and I just don't think I think it's working out for him now, but I don't think he's as fast as he was at 175. I rather prefer him in that division, but it's too late now because once you make a jump from 175 all the way to 200, you're not going back down. So, but overall, Zurdo Ramirez, again, a very good body puncher, a lot of pressure. He has high output in punches. His only weaknesses is if he cannot get to your body and he tends to overreach, it's very easy to counterpunch him. Now, let's get to Chris Billiam-Smith. Breezy, let me start off with Chris Billiam-Smith, and then I'm going to pass it on to you. With Chris Billiam-Smith, he's got a very good right hand, okay? And what I like about this matchup is both these guys got pretty similar skills. So he's got a good right hand. Zurdo's obviously a southpaw, but we talked about how he has power in both his hands. He has a very, very sneaky uppercut, Chris Billiam-Smith. The other thing about Chris Billiam-Smith is he keeps his guard up a lot. You know, every single time he makes an attack, it seems like he keeps his guard up a lot, unless he is in the inside with another fighter, and then that's a different story. We'll get to that in a little bit. He's got very good pressure. He's got good body work, just like Zurdo Ramirez. He's got a nice jab, just like Zurdo Ramirez. He's a good inside fighter, just like Zurdo Ramirez. They got the same strengths. Now, here's where the weaknesses come in. They got similar weaknesses too. Both of them are flat-footed. Both of them aren't really bouncing on their toes or anything like that. Both of these guys are kind of walk you down fighters, but they're flat-footed. And I feel like if you put them against guys who are quicker than them, they can kind of tend to have a little bit of problems. Unlike Zurdo Ramirez, I think Chris Billiam-Smith lacks head movement. I think he relies too much on his guard being up, and I feel like he doesn't rely enough on his head movement or parrying jabs or anything like that. He tends to get caught with hooks on the inside during exchanges, even though he is an inside fighter. Like you said with many other fighters, sometimes when they're in the inside, they kind of take punches that they shouldn't be taking, even though he can dish them out too. And he's got himself a good chin, so kinda like. It's very, very difficult. He's kind of got himself a good chin, but overall, sometimes he just be taking punches that he shouldn't. And last but not least, when you can find a puncher that can pressure him against those and put him on those ropes, every single time I've seen Chris Billiam-Smith on the ropes, he's always struggled and he was always in danger. Actually, one of his knockdowns that I looked at came from when he was on the ropes. And overall, I feel like Chris Billiam-Smith finds himself in that place a lot in very competitive fights on the ropes. He always tends to kind of get the momentum back and kind of pressure the other fighter, but at least a couple times in every single competitive fight that he has, he's kind of leaned up against those ropes. So overall, with Chris Billiam-Smith, he's got very similar strengths to Zurdo Ramirez and a couple of similar weaknesses with him, but the only difference is when he's up against those ropes, he's in really, really bad danger. And the other thing, too, is he tends to get clipped with hooks way too much. And I feel like that could be a very big issue when you're going up against somebody like Zurdo Ramirez. So overall, Chris Billiam-Smith, again, he is a very, very good puncher. And the one benefit that he has is he's had success at the cruiserweight division. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't lost in a very, very long time. And the one loss he had, he redeemed it. So overall, Chris Billiam-Smith, I would say he's the number 2 cruiserweight in the division right now. And I think he's got very, very good skills. And I mean, the guy is a good boxer, but the problem is I feel like the weaknesses sometimes can kind of outweigh some of his strengths. But he's always seen the one thing about Chris Billiam-Smith, I can honestly say, is the guy's never out of a fight. And he's always constantly fighting to the very, very end. And he always seems to kind of pull out that win usually. So that would be basically my breakdown for Chris Billiam-Smith. And I would love to hear your breakdown, Breezy, for Chris Billiam-Smith as well, as far as what he can do and what he can't.
Chris Billiam-Smith, the guy has power in both of his hands. The thing about Chris is that he can catch you with either hand. I know a lot of people don't tend to really mention this, but kind of like Mario touched upon the uppercuts, you know what I'm saying? He likes to slip those uppercuts in there too. He likes to slip sneaky punches up in there. When he's in the inside, although I'm about to get into why I don't feel like his inside game is, that in depth, he does try to sneak those punches in. And when he does try to sneak those punches in, those punches can hurt you. And just like Zurdo, he can also get you up on the ropes and he can do damage to you also. But the thing about Chris Billiam-Smith is this. Chris Billiam-Smith tends to do his damage more so in the middle of the ring than on the ropes. But if he does get you hurt in the middle of the ring and you do decide that you do want to back it up against the ropes, just know that things are going to be much, much, much worse for you. His weakness is this. And Mario touched upon all the points, but I'm just going to kind of like piggyback on it. When he's in the inside, sometimes I do see where he kind of like, he has the guard up, but he tries to rest his head on the fighter, which I saw that. I was like, it didn't register with me. He will put his guard up, and when he put his guard up, he's like he's laying his head down in there. And it makes me wonder if he gets in the inside and those guys that he's in there against, they're kind of hitting him with shots, and it's tiring him out. So he's kind of like in a way trying to clinch or hold on and keep the guard up, but also keep his head on them so he doesn't necessarily gas out, but at the same time he doesn't get knocked down. He doesn't get knocked out. And to me, I feel like that's kind of a big flaw, especially if you're going to fight somebody like Zurdo Ramirez, who does a lot of damage in the inside. Another point that Mario touched upon is the footwork. I mean, it's not too many guys at this division that use a lot of head movement or footwork, aside from Jai Opetaia. So, but the reason why I say that is because it's like it's only so much you can do in the inside. It's only so much I seen Chris Billiam-Smith do in the inside. And the thing about it is, what we have to take into account is that is Zurdo Ramirez going to sit right there and allow you to put your head on him? Is he going to sit there and allow you to just keep that guard up? No. Zurdo's going to go to your body. And if you try to cover the body, he's going to go up to the head. And not only that, too, he's going to try to back you up, too. Not only that, too, but he's going to try to get it from the outside. Although I will say this, too. I will say this about Chris Billiam-Smith. You know, he does have those nice long punches he like to throw on the outside. He likes to keep you at the end. But at the same time, though, I feel like that's his best bet for this fight. Playing the inside game is not really the best hindsight for him in this fight. If anything, I think he's going to have to pick his shots wisely, especially if he's going to try to go in the inside. I wouldn't advise him to go in the inside, but if he's going to try to go in the inside too, you want to do damage to Zurdo's body. I mean, try to tire him out, try to back him up too. Don't try to go tick for tat. Mix your shots up, but at the same time, don't make yourself predictable and keep your guard up at necessary times. But that would be my breakdown for Chris Billiam-Smith.
As far as the keys, so for I just want to briefly touch up on the keys. So Chris Billiam-Smith, what I think he's gonna have to do is he's gonna have to take advantage of the uppercuts when Zurdo Ramirez overleans and kind of leans in a little bit too much. I feel like if you have just enough foot movement to kind of get out the way, you can definitely hit him with an uppercut. And like I said, at 200, I feel like Zurdo's slower. So that could possibly be, a tool you might want to use. Protect your body. The last thing you want to do is let Zurdo Ramirez freaking hit your body all night long. That's not a good idea. You know what I'm saying? So definitely protect your body and be aware of those straights and uppercuts I talked about when he's starting to engage in attacks. If he can do those three things, I think Chris Billiam-Smith can have himself a very good night. Now, as far as Zurdo Ramirez, I think what he needs to do is attack the body, clearly. I think he needs to use his hooks, like we said, or like I said, Chris Billiam-Smith, I think the hooks are his biggest weakness. He can't seem to defend them, especially when he's up against those ropes. And last but not least, you got to get him up against those ropes. I mean, it's as simple as that. Just basically beat a pressure fighter, put him up against those ropes, and start throwing them hooks. They're going to hit, and with Zurdo Ramirez's power, Chris Billiam-Smith will feel it. Now, Breezy, is there any thoughts or any brief keys to victory that you would like to share before we get to the betting odds?
Zurdo apply heavy amount of pressure in that inside. If you go on the inside and you start putting those combinations together, if you start trying to back him up, work that body, and come up at the top, I'm telling you right now, eventually he's going to slow down. Like I said, I do think at times it does look like he get gas, and I think he has a great job of kind of like maintaining the fight, being in the fight, while also looking like he's a little bit out of there and drained and helpless at times. But at the same time, though, like I said, for Chris Billiam-Smith, play it on the outside. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to take too much exchanges in the inside, because like I said, I don't think the inside game is necessarily his best bet. But I will say this for Zurdo: if you're Zurdo, you do want to get in the inside. You can stay on the outside, but at the same time, though, Chris Billiam-Smith, he's going to try to look to go for those power punches too, because both of these guys both got power. So somebody's going to look to go in the inside, whether it's Zurdo or it's Chris Billiam-Smith. One of these guys eventually is going to go in the inside, and it's going to matter who opposes they will the most.
So for this fight, the betting odds are pretty slim. Gilberto Ramirez, or Zurdo Ramirez, excuse me, is at -225 favorite. Chris Billiam-Smith is the +180 underdog. Now, the most likely outcome to victory, they're saying, is Zurdo Ramirez by decision. And I can see that because Zurdo Ramirez at 200 hasn't really knocked anybody out yet. And obviously, Chris Billiam-Smith at knockout is plus 650. Now, here's the thing, okay? Before I get to my prediction, here's the thing, okay? Chris Billiam-Smith at knockout isn't all that crazy. And the reason why I say that is because Zurdo got outclassed by Dimitri Bivol, who's at 175, and who isn't even really a power puncher at 175. And he went up against somebody like Joe Smith, who's got some decent power with him, and everything like that. But I don't know. Somebody like Chris Billiam-Smith could potentially pull off an upset. Now, regardless, let me say my prediction right now. I think this is going to be Zurdo Ramirez, and I think it's going to be by knockout. I think he's going to knock out Chris Billiam-Smith, and I think he might do it with a body shot, and I think he might do it with an uppercut. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be one of those two, I feel like, but I feel like Zurdo Ramirez, even though he's not as fast as he is at 175 pounds. I think what's going to happen is both of these guys are going to be on the inside for the whole night. And I think it's going to be a great fight, honestly, Breeze. I think this might be one of our top graded fights. I think it's going to be a very, very good graded fight. I think both of these guys are going to be inside just trading blows, just going punch for punch. But the overall outcome that I can see Zurdo Ramirez basically continuously targeting him at the body because the other thing I forgot to mention is Chris Billiam-Smith also has a wide stance. And I feel like Zurdo is going to take advantage of that, especially with the body punches. I think he's going to definitely wear out that body. And then later on in the fight, probably like the 10th round, I think he's going to knock out Chris Billiam-Smith. I think he's going to knock him out. I think he's going to hit him with a body shot. It's going to hurt. I feel like Chris Billiam-Smith is going to be able to recover from it. And I think we're going to be looking at the new WBO champion, still WBA champion, and unified cruiserweight champion. And I think the winner of this is going to get Jai Opetaia. So overall, I think I'm going to go Zurdo Ramirez, 10th round knockout.
Y'all, this fight can really go either way. So I'm not even gonna tell y'all, oh, it's crazy if you say if you say that this fight can go either way. But as far as my prediction, give me Zurdo Ramirez by a split decision. I think early round, yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but I think the first 2 rounds they're going to try to fill each other out, and I think rounds 3, 4 they're going to engage more. And I say between 56, they're going to try to take it into the inside, and I think it's going to go blow for blow. I could see it going like 2 rounds Ramirez, 1 round maybe Chris Billiam-Smith or vice versa. I could see this being a back and forth fight where 1 round goes to Zurdo, another one go to Chris. So it's like I could see it being one of those back and forth slugger type fights, kind of like, honestly, I could really honestly see this fight really being like Bivol and Beterbiev, honestly. So, with all in all, give me Zurdo Ramirez by split decision.
Okay, so you got a close fight. Okay, all right. Either way, I mean, this is definitely gonna shake up the cruiserweight division. I'm telling you, this might be our highest graded fight of the season so far. So I'm excited for it, man. And it's gonna be on Latino Night. And again, Arnold Barbosa, Jose Ramirez, Oscar Duarte, um, Oscar Collazo, Tevin Farmer. I mean, this is a good card. And it's sponsored by Riyadh season. Y'all better think Turk Alalshikh. Look, say what you want about him or anything like that. I hear a lot of y'all, oh, everybody's selling out to him. They want that Saudi money, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. But hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. All these promoters seem to be aligning with Turk Alalshikh, and that is because neither one of these people want to make the fights happen. He's doing it. So you know what? Let's thank Turk Alalshikh for a second. Turk Alalshikh, thank you for your service to boxing, okay? I know many people don't appreciate you and everything like that. We appreciate you. So you know what? Zurdo Ramirez versus Chris Billiam-Smith Jr. Excuse me. Zurdo Ramirez versus Chris Billiam-Smith for the WBO and WBA Cruiserweight Championship. That's going to be on November 16th as part of Latino Night. Make sure y'all definitely go check that out on Riyadh season. And overall, look, we're going to be right back here with the post-fight breakdown and how everything went. And I'm telling you, y'all are going to want to stay tuned in for that. This is definitely a card that if you are a boxing fan, especially if you love the Mexican style of boxing, you definitely want to tune into this card because this is going to be action-packed night. I can't wait for it, man. And overall, I can't wait to get back to y'all with the post-fight breakdown. So with that being said, make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure y'all follow the podcast. Make sure y'all like the content that we're posting on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Reddit, Discord, all that type of stuff, Facebook. Make sure y'all tune in and stay on point with the Puncher's Point.
What's good, y'all? Y'all know what it is. It's the Purchase Point. We live every week. Make sure y'all tune in with us. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. And y'all already know what to do. Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point.